Hi, my name is VaunePierce and welcome to my sewing room. Today I want to show you a stitch on the Bernina sewing machines called a long stitch. And what this stitch does is it's a longer stitch, but it's not a basting stitch. When the needle goes up and down, it actually skips a stitch while it still pushes the fabric through the sewing machine with the feed dogs. When you're doing this, if you stitch several rows of these stitches together and all start them at the same place and then pull them up, the gathers look like tiny little pleats. So it's a really nice gathering technique. I've got a Bernina. That's what I'm going to be demoing on. I have not found this machine stitch on a Pfaff, an Elna, a Viking, a Janome, a Brother, or a Baby Lock. If they're on there and you know of them, please email me and let me know. My email is vaune@vaune.com. But they typically are on the top of the line Bernina machine in each series. So it'll be on the 580 and the 590, the 790 and the 880. So I'm going to start with showing you first. I have several Berninas. We're going to have the camera over here and I'm going to show you how to find them on your sewing machine. So on my original sewing machine, my first sewing machine that I bought, it's a 930. And I bought that in 1984 when I got out of college. It is not computerized. It was the last machine Bernina made before they went to a computerized machine. And on the top of the machine right here is a little knob. And most of the time when you sew, it's straight up and it's got these three little dots. If you turn it to the left, that's a basting stitch. And if you turn it to the right, there are these two long stitches, and that's what they call a long stitch. And if you look in their manual, it tells you to turn it to the right. Same thing, just not quite as clear of a picture, but that's what turns the long stitch on. About 25 years ago, I bought a 1530. This machine has a LCD screen. It's got a trackball on the front, and when you turn your machine on, there's a little bar across the top that gives you options, and right here in the manual it's number 13, but it's got those two long bars, and again that's the long stitch. So on the Bernina 580, if you go to I for information, and this is somewhere in the manual, most dealers don't know about this because it's not a stitch that they use often, but if you tap on I, you can see right here on this icon, it's got the two long stitches. So if you activate that, that will make your machine stitch the long stitch. So what I want to do for you is I'm going to go ahead and inactivate this, and I'm going to stitch with the regular stitch so that you can see and hear how the machine works, and then I'm going to go ahead and activate the long stitch so you can see and hear how the long stitch goes. So we're on the straight stitch. I've just got the default. This default on this machine is 2.5, and so I'm going to go ahead and stitch, and this is in red so you can see. And you can see this is just a straight stitch like this. So now I'm going to go ahead and activate the long stitch. Okay, and I want you to listen. When the needle goes up and down, it almost skips a stitch as it feeds the fabric through the feed dog. And you can see that the stitches on this are longer than your regular stitches. And we're going to try to get a good close-up for this because you can see here's the entrance point of the needle. Okay, now what I've done is I've already stitched 2 of these. I'm going to stitch 1 more for you. And when you use these to make gathers, you want to have a line on your fabric, and you want your needle position to start in the same place every single time. So I'm going to go ahead and position my needle. That's just a little too far forward. So that my needle is right on that line, and then I'm going to start stitching again. And then I've got my 3 rows here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it over, and I'm going to pull my gathering threads, and I use the bobbin thread to pull. And when I pull, get these out of the way, you can see that the gathers form little pleats like this. And if you are a smocker or an heirloom sewer, you'll appreciate the neatness of these gathers. It kind of looks like you put the fabric through a little pleater. So you can see how nice and even these pleats are. And that is the long stitch. So I hope you've enjoyed this. If you've got a Bernina, look around in your manual or on your stitch library and see if you can find the long stitch, because I think you'll really like it. That's all for today. Happy stitching, and I hope to see you back on my YouTube channel in my sewing room.